Welcome back to Outdoors with Larry Ray on ESPN 790 AM. Brought to you proudly by Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency, Barton Power Sports, Sportsman's Warehouse, and Best Care Home Services.
And welcome back to Outdoors with Larry Ray on this beautiful Saturday, September the 23rd, second, I guess, official full day of autumn. And, you know, it arrived yesterday. So I'm Dave Gabbard. I'm your host this week, kind of sitting in Larry's rickety chair over here. And obviously I sits in it every week. But to do
Dave, Larry's a small guy. He
is a small guy and everything. But Larry, out on vacation this week, we gave him graciously give him a little time off to kind of clear his head. And cause to me, he's the hardest working guy in radio, plus magazine, editors of magazine and everything. But got John Gordon with me in the studio this morning from Avery. And but our next guest is here in West Tennessee is fish head number one, as I refer to him. We got Tim Broadbent out of our Jackson office, who is our West Tennessee's fisheries program manager. You know, that's kind of a long title.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything though.
I have to do y'all's business cards, send them in. Y'all getting these titles too long. You know.
Just put RFN.
We just need fish head number one on the card.
There you go.
But Tim, like I said, he's our fisheries program manager for the region, and I kind of cornered Tim this week and said, hey, I'd like to talk a little bit about the fisheries, because next week the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission will be meeting over in East Tennessee around Gatlinburg, and that is September. The meeting is where they usually will set the upcoming sport fishing regulations for next year, for 2018. Plus, they'll look at the commercial end of it also. But good morning, Tim.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. It's nice to talk to you again, Dave.
Oh, yeah. And, of course, Tim's crew here in West Tennessee, they provide the data. You know, they are the cornerstone of collecting this data that they can pass on up the line through the Fisheries Division in Nashville that makes the recommendations to the Fish and Wildlife Commissions so they can make a decision on whether they're going to vote for it or not. So I know your guys this spring, y'all collect data spring, fall, and I know your fall sampling period is fixing to start here in a few weeks, but you've already done the spring and looked at that data. So what did you guys see?
Well, there's a lot of things going on in the reservoirs, and number one thing that people are mistaken with is that Asian carp are impacting our native species. We have not reached the density of Asian carp at this point to negatively impact our bass, crappie, bluegill, red ear, sauger populations. So let's just get that out front. Right now with bass, they've been so good for so long that catch rates and harvest rates by anglers has been really good. We've attracted a lot of tournaments to Kentucky Reservoir over the last 10 years. And what you have to remember, fish populations are cyclic. So we're kind of on a downside of bass. We're seeing a little less recruitment. It hasn't impacted angler catch yet, but there's going to be a period over the next probably few years that your bass fishing is not going to be quite as good as it has been the last 10 years. But anglers have really been spoiled for the last 10 years with bass. They've been the best that's ever been on Kentucky Lake and Barkley and Pickwick. So with bass, it's still good. It's just not as it's going to see a slight decline, we feel, over the next few years as far as angler catch rates and harvest rates.
And because when I talk to people about y'all's data collection and I talk with them, I said they're not looking at how the fishing is now. They're looking to see how it is going to be next year and the year after.
Exactly. That's what our most important fish we collect is the little one. That tells us what's coming on for the next 2 or 3 years, and we can kind of prepare anglers that say, hey, things are not going to be quite as good, but they'll they are cyclic, so things will get better.
And how you're talking about in the last 10 years, I know, and you've been around
too long, Dave. Too
the
long.
agency, about like me, a little bit too long and everything.
Yeah.
So, and of course, before you took the number one fish head chair there here in West Tennessee, you were our Kentucky Lake Reservoir biologist, headed that crew over there.
That's correct.
So,
yeah.
Over the year tenure, I guess, what have you seen, I guess, because you're out there and looking at that, and the quality of the water, mainly on Kentucky and Barkley Lakes?
Well, depends on what discharge you get, how much precipitation you get during the year. But as far as water quality and the effects on humans, it's no problems, no issues at all. Of course, we've still got the mercury advisory on the Big Sandy, but that's not a prohibit to keep people from eating them. It's just you don't eat as many. You don't eat but a pound per month. But we have things like that going on. But as far as the water quality, it's really good, and we've seen an increase this year in zebra mussels, Asian carp, or that 2015 year class is coming on pretty strong, and people are seeing a lot of those jump. But they have to remember those things move around in pods. And what's here today may be gone tomorrow. So
right, and I know back earlier this spring, we were getting a pretty good die off of certain age class of the Asian carp, and I believe the samples that y'all collected and sent off, the report was basically because of the relatively mild winter, I guess we had, they were kind of ahead of schedule to. And were really just starving to death before their food stores showed up.
Well, that was one of the theories, I think, that came out early. It turned out that wasn't quite the case. But
okay.
There was we have tens of thousands of them dying lake-wide on Barkley, Kentucky, all the way from dam to dam. And I want to tell people that when you see these fish dying, don't throw them back in the water. Throw them farther up the bank, because we don't want they're exotic species. We don't want to save them. But there was some bacteria in some of them, but we may never really know what actually killed them. Those things, like I said, they get so crowded in these pods that once they get a bacterial infection, they pass it from one fish to the next fairly easily. They get stressed, and they end up dying and exhibiting kind of a unique behavior of jumping out of the water on the bank and doing different things. But there was an Aeromonas bacteria, and there's some gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria in the fish, but we hope it continues because it only impacts them. That's the only thing that was dying was just the Asian carp.
Yeah, I was talking about that. I was talking to, when that was happening, a lady up around the parish there, and she was talking about the fish jumping out on the bank, and she said, I picked one up and threw it back in the water, and it immediately jumped back on the bank. I said, well, ma'am, I said, it's just kind of strange stuff out there in the animal world. Think of it as kind of like, the old saying that lemmings, when they overpopulate, they kind of run and jump into the sea. Well, I said, with Asian carp, when they overpopulate, they run and jump up on the bank,
Right.
So, but I know with Kentucky Lake up there, how about the crappie? What did the crappie look like?
Crappie's improving. I know that people have had a kind of a down year the last 3 or 4 years, but we're starting to see better recruitment. So it's going to be better fish over the next several years. Our recruitment last year in 2016 was not very good, but we got 2 or 3 years prior to that were really good. So that shouldn't hurt us too much. But crappie catch rates by anglers increased a little bit in 2016 and 2017. I heard some good reports from fishermen fishing the Big Sandy, and so we think the crappie fishing is rebounding, but the way the water levels and the climate patterns are going right now, you just have to. We'll start that sampling probably next couple of weeks, looking at trap netting on Kentucky Lake and Barkley, and get an idea of what kind of recruitment we have. But it should get better next year.
And I know over the last decade, we was talking bass a little while ago. I was talking all largemouth. How's the smallmouth? I know in recent years, I've talked to people bass fishing mainly on Kentucky Lake, and they talk about the quality of the smallmouth they've been catching.
We don't collect smallmouth very often. They're a deeper water species, and our shocking boats just don't see a lot of them. But the ones we see are quality size. Now, on Pickwick, we know they're there. We know there's quality fish, and we've tried everything we possibly can to collect them. But we just have a difficult time collecting sufficient numbers to get an idea.
Yeah.
We do collect a lot of small fish. So, again, that's like you said earlier, we're concerned about the little fish, about recruitment, so we can predict what may happen to the population over the next several years. And smallmouth Pickwick is considered to be one of the best in the state.
And okay, like I said, the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission will be meeting next week to look at the sport fishing regulations. Anything coming out of it that's kind of going to affect West Tennessee?
No, not really. There's some commercial stuff, but as far as sport fish regulations, there's nothing there. Most of the stuff that we'll be talking about is in East Tennessee regulations. And I do want to mention we have stocked Florida bass on Kentucky Lake for the last 3 years. We'll be evaluating that stocking program to see what impacts they have on the.
Yeah, I believe y'all just got an award for your building at the Humboldt Hatchery.
Yeah. Guys at Humboldt did a terrific job of sticking with that thing, getting it built, and overcame all kind of obstacles and used the good old American ingenuity to get things done. So, yeah, they did a really good job, and we're giving a meritorious award at the last commission meeting.
Well, good. Well, we sure appreciate you taking time talking with us this morning. I know here for you, to give up 15 minutes of a Saturday morning, to let us know what's happening in the wonderful world of fish. So, I take it you will be going to the commission meeting next week.
Oh yeah, I'll be there. Trying to answer any questions they may have.
Okay, well, you have a good trip and a safe trip, and we sure appreciate you taking time with us this morning, Tim.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Take care of yourself.
Okay, Tim Broadbent, West Tennessee Fisheries Program Manager here for Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. So, y'all get up, take a break, and come back for the next segment of Outdoors with Larry Ray.
You can find out all about it on Outdoors with Larry.